Khalil, welcome to Leaders Mindset. It's really an honor and a pleasure to have you here in our studio. So Crafty Ramen recently have been ranked as one of Canada's top companies. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Recently you said that your journey, the last 2 years of your journey at Crafty Ramen has been painful and rewarding at the same time. And what we see, obviously there's a lot of things that happens behind the scenes, and what we see on the outside is Crafty Ramen growing, becoming big and being rewarded as one of the top companies. Why did you say it was painful the last 2 years? Obviously there's so much happening in the back end. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I think it's so easy to see what we call an overnight success from the outside, right? On social media, you see the accolades, the awards, the grocery store growth, but you don't see what it actually takes to build a business from the ground up. So Crafty Ramen's a true startup. I partnered with Jared and Mickey about 6 years ago with the original intention to grow restaurants. And we had to pivot during the pandemic after we had opened our second restaurant just 4 months before the world shut down. So we started to create these at-home ramen meal kits that caught virality online. And we really realized we were onto something. There's a huge white space in the market between instant ramen and going out to a restaurant. So we want to carve out the restaurant quality ramen at home ready in minutes. And we own our own manufacturing. So everything from raising money to dealing with banks when you're not profitable to figuring out how to manufacture at scale has been an incredible challenge along the way. But it's been so rewarding. The highs are high and the lows are low. The feeling of not being able to make payroll is probably one of the worst feelings in the world, because we have this team of 80 people that are so dedicated to the cause and they're aligned on the mission. And there's been times over the last few years where we looked at our bank accounts and, oh my God, are we gonna make it? Are we gonna be able to pay our team? And that for me is where the most pain would come from, because for us, like people and what we're doing, people is everything, right? When we're a 3 companies at Crafty Ramen, 2 restaurants, and our grocery business, we can't do it without the incredible people that show up every day.
You've been in the food business for quite some time now. Having fun with food, that's one of the things that you mentioned all the time. And your mom told you not to play with food.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So can you tell us, you're having fun with food? If your mom asked you, are you playing with food? What would you tell her?
Yeah, we play with food every day.
Okay.
And the philosophical questions are my favorite questions, because when we're too focused on the destination or the outcome or where we're trying to go, the day-to-day you can lose sight of, and the day-to-day can end up really being miserable. So really the only thing that exists is the present moment today. So we say as long as we're having more good days than bad days, we're doing something right. And it's so important to have fun today and enjoy today, because that destination is really just an oasis. And when you do get there, it never actually looks like what you thought about it in your head, right?
100%. So you mentioned a lot about community, and it seems like there is kind of correlation between food and community. So what is food to you?
Yeah, it's so much more, right? It's so multifaceted. I think one of the things that really attracted me to Crafty Ramen, I was originally a customer. So I'd go into the Guelph restaurant, I would sit at the bar, and I would interact with the chefs. And I have this thing that I call perfect hospitality. And you can achieve perfect hospitality at a 3-star Michelin restaurant where everything's absolutely perfect. But you can also achieve it when you're traveling and you're eating that empanada for 50 cents on the side of the street in Colombia. Or you're going to a Blue Jays game and you're having that footlong on a sunny day and you're at the sausage cart. For me, perfect hospitality is good food, good people, right environment, and you're having fun. And when you bring all those things together, doesn't matter if you're paying 50 cents or $500, that feeling that you get, the experience you get is the same, and that's what my favorite thing about food is.
So a lot of big entrepreneurs tell you don't get into restaurant business or food business. And it seems like almost everyone that wants to start business, they want to start food business. So I think Cody Sanchez mentioned getting into food business is not going to be great. It's really hectic, the amount of work you put into it, and it's not as profitable as people think. Yes, it's something that creates a job for you and pays everybody else. What's your perspective on that?
I agree. I think you have to be a little bit crazy to get into the food business, but it can be absolutely rewarding. It's kind of the feeling is when you give somebody a gift at Christmas, you feel great in that moment. So when we're hospitable and we're sharing with our fellow teammates or our guests or our customers, we get that sense of pride and feeling. And I agree that it can be really easy to buy a franchise or open a restaurant and really buy yourself a job. But I believe that if you do it right and you pay attention to, every detail matters, and you create that environment where people want to come back over and over, and you can scale that with some accountability and some processes and procedures, and you can copy and continue to grow outwards. But it is very difficult. And yeah, it's there's so many moving pieces, right? You need to make sure the food is good, the people show up, the guests are happy, the restaurant is clean. So there are so many moving pieces, but I think the beauty is everybody eats. Right?
Yeah,
so the technology companies are going to get these huge valuations because they're able to scale infinitely, but not everybody needs to use their technology, and everybody eats at least once a day. I hope you're eating more than once a day, but we all need food to fuel our lives, and think about the connections that we make over food at Thanksgiving, at Christmas, at Eid, at Diwali. Like everybody comes to the table and wants to share that food and that feeling.
Yeah. So what is your competitive advantage? It seems like you guys have business side of it, very knowledgeable in the business. That's what you bring to the table, as well as knowing the food aspect, the recipe, and the taste of the food. It seems like you guys have both sides, both of the best worlds.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I would say our competitive advantage is probably around people and the philosophy on how we run our businesses. So for example, we have a philosophy where it's totally okay to make a mistake as long as you're learning from it, right? Growth and empowerment around our team is really what's been able to make us get here today. So that idea of, handing over the keys to an individual store to a really great unit manager that wants to take it and run with it, or empowering the chefs and the team to come up with ideas and really, really make it their own. We have another philosophy. It's just like act like you own the place. And whether you're with our group for a season, a reason, or a lifetime, if you take these philosophies that we try to teach and operate like that in any job you have or any business you want to create, should ultimately see some success out of that. And for us, we get a lot of joy in watching people grow on our teams.
Yeah, that's it's quite fascinating that you putting a lot of emphasis on the people. And this is something that a lot of corporations don't look into or pay attention to as much as they pay attention to the customer. Yes, you need to pay attention to the customer, but it's the people, the core, makes the company, grow. So Simon Sinek also mentions that at the end, it's the people that will make the good product. Right?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, we call it people on both sides of the counter, right? If our team is happier, excited to come to work, feel empowered, then the customer experience is just naturally going to be better, right? Because energy is a real thing, and we feel the energy. So if our team is excited to serve you, you're naturally going to have a better experience in our restaurants.
Absolutely, 100%. So you guys also appeared on Dragon's Den.
We did.
So what was it like appearing on Dragon's Den? Your pitch must have been really fascinating because you guys secured about $600K, I believe?
Yeah, so we got a deal on TV.
Okay.
Really incredible experience. The team at CBC was just awesome to work with. We were actually in there for an hour and a half, and they cut it down to 7 minutes. So for about 45 minutes, Jared, our co-founder and chief culinary officer, he cooked for them, did a demonstration, made a bunch of ramen.
Cooked right on the
Yeah,
spot?
right on set.
Wow.
The Dragons ate, and we got some really great feedback.
Awesome.
Arlene said it's the best ramen she's ever had.
Wow.
And then, so we had a couple offers on the Den. And then, so we got a deal on TV. We haven't closed the deal with Arlene in real life, but we keep in touch. And I think when the time is right for both companies, there's a potential for us to work together for sure. But she's been great. Like the feedback that she's given us has been so valuable. And we were actually just at her Venture Park Summit in Toronto a couple weeks ago, where she brought together, startup CPG entrepreneurs from all over the country with some panels and some data sharing sessions. So really great. What she's doing for the startup community in the food space in Canada is incredible and super respectful. So yeah, we keep her updated on the business. I actually sent her an email a couple days ago.
Awesome.
So yeah, it was just a really awesome experience. And I think what it really did for the brand was give us a level of credibility.
Absolutely, 100%.
So when we were talking to Loblaws and Sobeys and Walmart, it breaks down that barrier of entry that, oh, this is just a little Guelph startup. So having that national PR adds a lot of credibility for us.
What was like preparing that pitch?
Nerve-wracking. Yeah, nerve-wracking. And I think we had done the seed round before we went on the Den, so we understood what it was like to pitch investors. But when you're pitching a traditional investor, you're doing this. You're having a conversation, right? You show them your slide deck, but then you're going back and forth with some questions. Whereas on the Den, you have 6 people like peppering you with questions at the same time. So it's a very different experience. But every time we talk to different entrepreneurs and different business leaders and share our story, we learn something. And we're big proponents of learning from other people's experiences. So it's so valuable. Whether we get a deal or not, the feedback that we get, we really take a look at, okay, they said this, how does this apply to our business? Should we take that advice or should we throw it out? But we really listen to all the feedback that we get and apply it accordingly.
So you were born and raised here in Guelph, and you've been heavily involved with all community activities here in Guelph. You're a big part of the supporter of the Guelph General Hospital. You've mentioned you're part of the board as well, right? Can you tell us what your activities are? Being part of that.
So I'm currently the chair of the Guelph Hospital Foundation. It's been an incredible, rewarding experience. Everybody needs the hospital. You're born there, you're gonna pass at some time, you probably break a bone or two, hopefully nothing too serious in the middle. But it's one of those spaces that everybody needs it. So giving back to the hospital is so rewarding because it literally affects everybody in our community. And just to rewind a little bit, so my parents are refugees to Canada. So they were kicked out of Uganda when they were 13 years old.
Wow.
And they came to Canada with nothing. So we're very grateful that the Canadian government, accepted this cohort of refugees.
And this is what year?
This was 52 years ago. So Idi Amin was the dictator who had a dream of, there's only a certain color of people that should be prosperous in his country, and everybody who didn't fit that had to leave. So after living in Canada for about 10 years, my parents scraped together, as well as my dad's brother, scraped together their savings and bought the Diana downtown. So at the time, it was a greasy spoon type restaurant. So they turned it around over a few years, and one day introduced an Indian dish on the menu. And they had customers coming in saying, "Whoa, it smells like India in here. It smells like Pakistan in here. We're never coming back."
And this is early 90s.
This would have been, early 90s. And they're like, oh my God. But they had a cohort of allies that were like, no, this food is amazing. You need to keep serving it. This is incredible. So that's where the sense of community really is one inflection point of where we started to see the importance of community. And so my parents growing up were always giving back to the community. And our journey at the hospital really started when we got into the Harvey's world. We just did a barbecue out front of the hospital every year, and we would donate all the burgers, and people would pay, and we'd give that money back to the foundation.
And you're continuing that culture.
Yeah, so I naturally got to know the team at the foundation, and I'm like, oh, we have a board role, you should apply. So this is obviously, we're skipping a lot of years here, but that's really how I got involved with the hospital, was through food.
Through food, wow. Food brings people together.
Exactly.
Wow, it's a sense of community. There's so much to food.
Yeah. And even when we do meetings, right? We all get excited. What are we ordering for lunch is the most exciting part when you do a all-day strategy session, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, can you tell us more about Harvey's? You own about 6 Harveys in the region. You don't talk much about being the owner of Harvey. You're all into Crafty Ramen so much nowadays, of course, that's the hot topic.
Yeah.
So tell us more about Harvey's.
I love our Harvey's business. As I grew up in it, started working there when I was 13. Wow. So around the age of 13, my dad sold his half of the Diana downtown, bought one Harvey's franchise in KW, pulled me to work with him every Saturday from 7 to 3 back when we used to serve breakfast. So I really grew up in the brand. And
So one Harvey led to another Harvey.
Yeah.
How is that process?
exactly. So they had one, and then ran that successfully for a few years, and then had the opportunity to buy a second one on Woodlawn Road in Guelph. So then naturally closer to home. So during high school, I grew up working through that location, went to university, and when I graduated university, I thought I was going to be a finance guy. I did economics and finance at the Lang Business School here in Guelph, and was applying to jobs in Toronto, and had a little bit of an intermediary period. So I went and helped Dad at the restaurants, and Mom and Dad, I should say, at the restaurants, and I just really started to fall in love with it. And so Dad was like, "Hey, you want to stick around? Let's grow this thing."
So it wasn't something that was coming from or push coming from
No,
friends. It was
no.
something that was just presented to you.
Yeah, very, very lucky actually. We hear a lot of stories from immigrant parents being like, "You have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, you have to join the business." They were their belief was get a good education and then, decide where you want to follow your own path and your own journey. And family business is really powerful. It can also be very challenging. So yeah, I was able to join and help grow us now to 6 locations, and spend about half my time on Harvey's and half my time on Crafty. And going back to the people, we're just super lucky in our Harvey's group. We have an incredible team that have been with us. Our key management have been with us for an average tenure of about 13 years.
What's your average day like?
Oh my God, I can't even tell you what I did yesterday, to be honest with you. It really changes day to day. We focus on the priorities for the day, and I try to get out of the office as much as possible and be on the floor with our teams. But lately it's been more and more Zoom. Some days are just like back-to-back Zoom from 8 a.m. till the end of the day. But the real passion is when I'm in the restaurant with our teams on the floor. That's what really gets me going.
Interacting with the real people.
And customers and team,
Lately, we've been obsessing quite a bit about leaders and leadership skills. That's why we call this podcast Leaders Mindset. And what we see about leaders is mostly the success that appears on social media and everywhere, right? So there must have been a lot of bumps, right, being a leader. Can you tell us about some of the failures?
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many days where we're like, should we just close the doors? Do we just quit today? And I think the number one trait of what we see on social as successful entrepreneurs is that of perseverance. You really need to just persevere. So in those moments where we don't know if we're going to make payroll, it's, do we quit? Do we shut it down now? And then we go and read our customer feedback and we're like, no, this product is amazing. People want it. We need to keep going. Or when the venture capitalists or the banks are saying, no, we can't fund you. It's really easy to say, okay, we're done, wrap it up. Let's just move on.
So what fuels that inspiration?
I think it's the desire to never wanting to fail. And then I think and you hear it when you watch Dragon's Den all the time, like, hey, this is not a good idea. You should pack it up. Understanding whether you're onto something or not can be important in that decision. But I think the idea of just continuing to keep going and keeping the positive attitude when it's really hard to keep a positive attitude is really important for the team too. Because if I'm not in a great mood or if I'm not showing the confidence that we can make it, the whole team will start to feel the same way. So I think that is just the most important thing.
So that energy trickles down basically.
Absolutely,
of the perseverance.
Absolutely.
So leadership is a lonely journey. Does it feel like that? And why does it have to be a lonely journey?
I think it's lonely because when you're a leader, there's not really anybody else at the top, if you will. So the struggles that you go through, the problems that you face, it's hard for others in the organization to resonate because a lot of other people in the organization only see, their world and their role, whereas the leaders have to look at the entire picture. So it can feel very lonely in that sense. I've found some really great solace in always connecting with other entrepreneurs So seeking out people who are experts in different areas of the businesses we're trying to grow, and just sitting with them and sharing with them. I was part of Entrepreneurs Organization for a long time. So I got to meet with a group of 6 entrepreneurs monthly and just really vulnerable share our stories and learn from each other. So that's been a really great resource for me personally. And I think that idea of vulnerability is another one that's really important in our organization. Being able to share openly, whether it's with your colleague or with your leader, is super important. And listening with no judgment when somebody is sharing vulnerability has been a really important pillar of our philosophy.
So being a leader, it doesn't have to be lonely. You could still connect to and network with other leaders in the region and have those open discussions and get some feedback and support.
Exactly. And for me, that's been one of the great selfish things about giving back to the community. As my role of the chair of the foundation, I've learned so much while I'm donating my time. So selfishly, I get to donate back to the hospital via time, but I also get to learn while I'm doing it. I got to learn board governance. I got to be involved in hiring the new CEO for the foundation. I get to meet with Julie monthly, and we get to learn from each other through our journeys, and that's been very rewarding.
What is going to be your legacy? What do you want to be known for?
That's a great question. Like I said, I love the philosophical ones. And I think this is something that, everybody thinks about. And when I first reflected on this question, I'm like, I'm too young to be thinking about this. But really for me, it's around how you make people feel. Nobody's going to remember what car we drove or what house we had, but they will remember how we made them feel. So I think it's super important and easier said than done some days, but try to leave people better than you found them. So when you interact with somebody, just if you have that idea of like, I want to leave you better than we started this conversation, people will remember that and resonate with that.
Absolutely. So philosophical question with philosophical answer.
Yes,
I love it.
Yeah, always, right?
Love it. So we talk about how everyone who wants to start a business, and first thing that comes to the mind is food business. So what advice would you have for a person who wants to get into the food business?
Yeah, so in the Harvey's world, for example, when there's a new franchisee incumbent that was potentially looking to come into the system and buy a restaurant, I get the honor of talking to some of them as they go through their decision. And the first thing that I ask them is, are you going to work the store? I'm thinking about putting a manager in. I said, don't do it. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. It is a business of passion, and you have to be willing to be in the trenches, on the floor, at least for the first 5 to 10 years while you learn the business inside out, and then you have the ability to transfer that skill onto somebody else. So for me, I think the number one piece of advice is you have to be willing to work the floor. You have to be willing to be in the trenches with your team. And then when you're doing that, your level as a leader increases in the eyes of your team. Like, wow, this person's changing garbages. Wow, this person's sweeping the floor. So really about parking the ego, getting in there and getting your hands dirty. And if you're not willing to do that, this industry is not for you.
My aunt started a business a few years back, and it was a restaurant that she opened in London, Ontario. She was in the kitchen herself, and she was getting her hands dirty, and she's a good chef. But after a while, after like a year and a half, she gave up, and it was too exhausting for her. And what causes that exhaustion? Why would she give up?
Oh yeah, and it's so easy. There are so many problems that can arise in any given day, from a pipe bursting to your delivery not showing up to your staff member phoning in sick, and you're it. You have to pick up the pieces. So it can really, really wear down on you. And I totally see how some people are just like, I can't continue to do this. I think I love solving problems. So when there's 10 problems in a day, I generally enjoy, okay, we got to figure this out. But like with anything, if you have a glass of water and that's your stress cup, you can only take so many layers of that before the glass starts to overflow. And then it just becomes too much. And I think looking after our headspace and waking up in the morning and being excited to do what you do is the most important. So for those that do leave the industry, they're doing it for themselves, and I think that's important.
So it's passion also. There's got to be passion.
A little bit of crazy passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A bit crazy passion.
Yeah.
I love that.
Absolutely.